we want to display the messages from Supabase on our landing page here in our Remix application. Let's start by quitting our development server and typing npm I or install at supabase/supabase-js. And once that's finished, we want to create a new file to hold our environment variables. Let's make sure that this is at the root of our project, and its name is going to be .env. This has already been added to our gitignore file, and so we don't need to worry about these values being committed to GitHub. In this file, we want a Supabase URL and a Supabase anon key. These two values can be found in our Supabase dashboard under Settings and API. You'll see we've got our URL here and our public anon key. We now want to create a folder called utils. This should also be at the rootmost point of our application, and in there we want a file called supabase.ts. Let's import the create client function from at supabase/supabase-js and make the default export from this file a call to create client, passing it process.env.supabase URL and our Supabase anon key. Now TypeScript is telling us that this value might not exist, and so we can add an exclamation mark to say these values will definitely exist in all of the environments, and let Supabase throw a runtime error if these don't exist. Now back over in index.tsx, we can import our new Supabase client and export a loader function to fetch data from Supabase. So we can say const data will be the value we get back from Supabase when we call supabase.from the messages table. We want to select all of the columns and then return this data from our loader. We can then access this data in our component by calling the useLoaderData hook, which we get from at remixrun/react. We can then render out this data instead of our H1. And if you haven't seen this before, this just allows us to pretty print out a big JSON object to the page. So now if we run our development server again, and then refresh the browser, we'll see that we're getting back an empty array. Now this might seem like an error because we know that there are two messages in our Supabase database. And if we open up the console and go over to the network tab and refresh the page, we'll see that all of these status codes look like they were successful requests. And the reason for this is back over in our Supabase database, we enabled row-level security for our messages table. And this will automatically deny all database actions, so any request to select, insert, update, or delete. If we want to enable one of these actions for our messages table, we need to write a row-level security policy. And we can do that by clicking this button or heading over to Authentication and then Policies. And now we want to click New Policy. Now there are some templates for common policies that you might want to write, but we're going to click Full Customization and write this from scratch. So our policy name is going to be allow users to read messages, and we want to allow the select operation. We're going to leave the default for target roles, which will be public, and then under our using expression, we just need to give it an expression that evaluates to either true or false to either allow this action or continue denying it. If we just put in the value true, then this is always going to enable that select action. So let's click Review, which is going to show us the SQL that's going to be run against our database, and we can click Save Policy to run that SQL. And now if we go back to our application and refresh, we can see that our Remix application is correctly displaying the messages from Supabase.